Hey everybody! So on today's technique video, I wanted to share with you basically my review of the Nuvo um, creative pens. And what I've done is I pre-stamped one of the Prima Princess stamps with a hybrid ink so that way it would work with these. You could also use Memento inks if you have any of those. Anything that is good for alcohol-based markers is what you want to use. So hybrid inks are usually good. You can use a pigment ink, but you gotta make sure it's completely dry, and so it's going to take time, or use a heat tool to get it dry. So in looking at these, I was just reading on the back here. They are, like I was saying, they are alcohol based markers. So we're going to go ahead and pull out the browns, which I'm going to hold up um, the numbers at one point. I think it's like towards the end, but basically they each have a dual tip. And on the one end, you can see here, you have the small nib, and then you have the chiseled end on the other side. And they fit really well in the hand. I like how um, the smaller nib, which is the side that I'm using right here, just to do the little bit of coloring, um, it's actually tapered, so it goes smaller on that end, and then it goes wider onto the chisel side. So it's really easy. You can look down at it and distinguish which end you're trying to use. Because on some of them, like the Spectrum Noirs, they do like a little, you see a little bit of gray on the chiseled end and then none on the other. I just want to make sure I'm saying that right. Hold on. So I have one right here. Okay, now you see the gray on the small nib side, and then you don't see the gray on the chiseled end. But it works the same exact way that you've seen people do your Copic markers or your Spectrum Noirs. And what a lot of people do is they start with doing a base covering of their light color, then they go to the medium, and then with their darker shade, and then work backwards from there. So you go light, medium, dark, and then dark, medium, light. They suggest a lot of people start out that way just to get used to using the alcohol markers. And I find that that's what works best for me. I think a lot of people, you begin to evolve as you use them more and more and more. I know some of the people I follow on YouTube, I've been seeing they do dark, medium to light. So for them, it's working that way. And they only have to go through once. They don't have to go, you know, one way and then back the other way to get back to light. They just start with the darker shade and go to the lighter shade. But the key with that is obviously you're hitting your shadows and the spots in the stamp that depict where it's going to have the shadows. And then you put the other colors over top. And then there we have the three shades. And it's really beneficial because they give you three shades that can, that are potentially to work together. And if you have a shade within those three that doesn't work, I'll show you kind of towards the end um, how you can still use it and get a good blend. So with the green colors, we're going to do the same thing. There's usually, I always find there's always that one color green that doesn't quite go. Like the two to me have more of an olive tint, and then there'll be one that'll have like a more bluish on the bluer side of the greens, and I'm like, okay. But you work with it, you know what I mean? You see if it's not blending for you or giving you the look that you want, then you get another set of greens, or learn how to do the tip to tip technique, which is one of the techniques I'm going to show you at the end. um, so there's a way to make it work and to get the blend that you're interested in. And then same thing with the pinks. Trying to hold them up here for you so you can see the numbers. And then we're just going to go ahead and on this one flower, I'm laying down all the light pink first. And then I'll take the medium shade and I'm going through where all those little sketches, those sketch lines are on the flower that would represent a shade or, some coloring within the flower. That's where I'm going. And then I use the dark one. I go into those spots and then in between each petal as best I can. And then once I'm done with the darkest shade, I'll go back to the medium and work my way all the way back to the light again. And then we're going to keep going. Because in using these, what I did notice is it's a really pretty pink. Oh, back here. This is good. You want to see saturation on your cards because that means you've got enough. I think it means you have enough fluid on your paper, which allows for easier blending. If it's too dry, you may have a harsh line and it takes a little bit longer or it's harder to work. But on here, I'm using the chiseled edge just to show you the three colors and how they blend together. You see how the first two, to me, they read a little bit more of a peachy pink, and then you have this really bright, vibrant pink. So it's interesting in how to blend those shades together. And same thing with the greens. And then I'm going to do the browns right here. And doing the three shades for those. And that's how I would do it. Like if I get a new package where it says like, oh yeah, these three work together, do a swatch. Put it on paper, see how they blend, see which colors you like working together. Because sometimes the colors they suggest, you might like a different order or a different way. It might work better, for you. So once I did that, see, the the saturation on the back is still doing good. I decided to take the two colors that I felt like were harder to blend. And then all I'm doing is I'm touching the lighter shade to the darker color and I'm blending right there in the middle to create basically like a third shade. And then we're going to keep working it until you feel like you have a nice even blend. And then if you think you still have some dark color on your light marker, just scribble off to the side and it'll clean off the nib. And then we're going to do the same thing with the pinks. So if you wanted to only use two, you can. See that light pink with that bright? Take that tip to tip and you will have a nice blend. And what I like to do is I'll just keep adding to my lighter side because it can afford to be a little bit more saturated than the other pink. But you can see with that little bit of that tip to tip, it's giving you good color, for the blending. That's what I'm trying to say. So we're going to do the last one, which is the brown. So this is tip to tip. I'm just going to write on there. This was the chiseled ends. And then on here, I was thinking just coloring in a few more spots, not doing any of the blending, just coloring the flowers with just one color, just to get some more color on our little test piece, our little the sheet that we're using here, just to kind of play around with colors and see how they move and blend with each other. And this one, there's so many intricate and a lot of different places where you could potentially add color and stuff like that. So with something like this, I probably would normally not select this particular stamp, do something that has just a little bit more areas where we can fully color and blend and stuff like that. But it was still fun just to see these markers work because I've used mostly Spectrum Noir, even though I do have a few Copics. Um, and it's interesting to see how they work. These remind me a lot of the Spectrum Noir markers. The small nib, though it gets into small places, it's a little bit bigger. It's not a fine point, so small details, it is a little bit harder. Um, the Copic, their small end is more like a brush. So it kind of operates more like a paintbrush than these two because these two nibs are a lot stiffer. And so the flicks that people get using Copics, it's harder to get with these. Though you can get something similar and that could work for you. And the price point on these are really quite nice. So if you want to delve into alcohol markers, but you're just not wanting to invest a whole lot of money into it, then I would look into these Nuvo pens because you really can't beat the price for three markers. I want to say they're on the boutique for like $5.99. I mean, that's insane. So I wanted to show you real quick. This is the Spectrum Noir, and then this is a similar Copic. So chiseled edge, and then the nib, and then same thing like I'm showing you on the Nuvo. So they're very similar. Very similar. And then on the Copic, you can see that end, it looks almost like a brush, which gives you the flicking motion. And then, see, you can do it with the Nuvo. It's just different. It just feels different as far as the marker itself. And I wasn't doing a whole lot of blending with that one, so but they do get very saturated as well when you use them on projects. So if you're using it on a one layer card, then you want to make sure you get a super thick cardstock, something that's like 110 pounds, so that way it doesn't bleed through. Otherwise, I would do whatever Copic coloring on a separate piece and then add a layer to your card front because otherwise whoever opens the card is going to see the bleeding coming through. So here are some close-ups of the flowers and the hair that we did on camera, and then all the markers that were sent to me by Miss Edith, and the different samples that I did here. Like I said, I think these are really good markers. These are really great to get started. If you've never done marker coloring and you really want to step into that, I would highly suggest it. And down in the comments, the more section below, I will have links directly to these markers. Like I said, I don't think these are a bad deal at all. You guys don't miss it. When you go to the .com, make sure you use TT15 in the coupon code. Thanks again, and I hope you guys have a great day.